I was a porn addicted pastor for 15 years. I tried internet filters, accountability partners, willpower, and praying more. None of it worked. I finally quit for good in 2016 using a process that no one else is talking about. I call it deep clean. Since then, I've become a father, a husband, and a coach to over 1,500 men who have quit porn as well using the deep clean system. In this video, I'm going to lay it out step by step so that you can quit porn for good too. I'm Sathiya Sam, a men's transformation coach, international speaker, and an author, and I've dedicated the last 6 years of my life to helping men quit pornography. So I fell into pornography in the computer lab of my Christian school when I was 11 years old. And I had no idea that that innocent day was going to change the rest of my life. By the time I was in university, I was addicted. And I began my recovery journey at this stage. I always told myself I could recover. I figured I just needed a couple days to change some new habits, change my thinking, and I'd quit. No big deal. But it turns out that actually quitting an addiction is a lot harder, and I had no idea. And I tried all the stuff that people talked about, and I'm going to get into that in a minute, and eventually found something that actually worked. It took me way longer than it should have, and I'm going to explain all of it to you guys in this video so that you don't have to waste all the time and all the effort and all the money that I did on solutions that ultimately came up empty-handed. Now, the reason that I decided to quit pornography was because while I was a university student, I gave my life to Jesus. And having grown up in the church, I was a pastor's kid, going to Christian school. I knew that when I gave my life to Jesus, I needed to clean up my lifestyle. And at the top of that list was quitting pornography. So I still remember, I was like, okay, I'm a dedicated Christian now. My life is over to Jesus. It's time to start living like it. No more pornography. So I cleared my history. I got rid of all the apps that I was using to download content, and I was ready to start a clean life. And I went 3 days. And after 3 days, I thought, oh, okay, I guess I just have to patch up a couple things, muster up a little bit more willpower. I threw up a prayer, and I was on my way. And I went 4 days. And this continued. And after a couple weeks of trying to quit pornography and not having any success, I realized that I would need some extra help. Now, this was scary for me because I had presented a facade. Everybody knew me as the nice guy, the good guy, the well-behaved person, and the last person in the world that you would expect to have a pornography addiction. So the idea of actually talking to somebody in person about it was scary, so I went online. And everything that I found online said install an internet filter and get an accountability partner. So I was brave enough to do that. I had one friend that I felt confident enough to talk to about my problem. And when I shared with him, he told me that he actually had the problem as well, and he had been working on it. And so we both kind of breathed a sigh of relief, and we agreed that we were going to hold each other accountable. So that week, we installed internet filters on both of our devices. We set each other up as the accountability partners so that if I watched anything I wasn't supposed to, he would get a report that would say like, hey, check in on Sathiya. He watched a bunch of stuff he wasn't supposed to this week. And same for my buddy. Now, the problem with this solution is, as great as it sounds, is number one, you can always get it around an internet filter in the heat of a moment. No filter is bulletproof. And especially in this day and age, we all know loopholes through technology. So that was the first thing, is I knew when I needed to get around it. But even in my weaker, not my weaker days, but even in my days where I wanted to be more transparent, I wasn't trying to hide, I was being a little bit more honest, that report would get sent to my friend who was struggling with pornography. So he would get a list of all these sites, and in his attempt to hold me accountable, he was now faced with a list of triggering content or a list of temptations. So this was a blind leading the blind kind of situation. And I still remember I stumbled a couple times after going a couple weeks just because my friend slipped and I got a report and the websites were right there, and I kind of got curious and started clicking away. So that was my first attempt at recovery, and I think it's safe to say it was a failure. Now, I am a very self-disciplined person when it comes to exercise and eating and relationships and technology and social media. I mean, if you look at most areas of my life, I'm pretty disciplined. I have good rhythms and routines. I can say no to the things I'm not supposed to say yes to. I can say yes to the things that I am supposed to say yes to. So I figured, okay, the internet filter thing didn't work, the accountability thing, we'll see. Maybe there's another way to do that. But I have a track record. I have discipline. I have willpower. So I'm going to lean into my strengths here a little bit more, and I'm just going to tough it out. And that got me to 2 weeks. So eventually I was like, okay, I'm slipping maybe every 1 to 2 weeks, and we're making some progress here. But is it really progress if you're still slipping multiple times a month? I mean, by my standards and by the standards of the Bible, I think we all know there's more than that. And this is where I really hit a wall, because at this point I thought, all right, you know what? I'll go back to the accountability system. So I started reaching out to more people, and I got plugged into some groups, and I even got a little bit of coaching. And it was like, hey man, I slipped up, pray for me. Hey man, I'm feeling tempted, pray for me. And again, all of our interactions were just centered around our failures and our shortcomings. They weren't actually doing us any favors. And so I would still go a week or two. I couldn't really push it any longer. And my accountability system wasn't doing me any favors. It was kind of just causing me to wallow in self-pity and stay in my addiction. So then I started to level things up a little bit. I thought, okay, maybe I'll go see some therapy. I'll do some inner healing. I'll go to, my pastors and my spiritual leaders, and I'll get some work that way. And this was helpful, but still not enough. And the reason it wasn't enough is because of the same reason that willpower, internet filters, and accountability partners weren't enough for me, and maybe why they weren't enough for you either. And that's because porn addiction is ultimately the result of a faulty root system. Okay, imagine that pornography addiction is this weed that's growing in your garden. And when you install an internet filter, that's trying to cut the weed off at the surface, which you can be successful in doing. You can run over a weed with a lawnmower, you can chop it or whatever, and everything looks pretty clean. But as long as that root system is there, you're not going to make the progress that you actually want, because that weed is still going to grow back. The root system is still there. And I was searching for quick fixes. This is what pornography does. It wires your brain to get instant gratification, short-term rewards. You don't really think about the long term. You're not patient. You're not willing to tough it out. And so that's what I was doing in my recovery, literally using my porn brain to try to fix the porn problem. Quick fix solutions, slap on an internet filter, join an accountability group, everything that was sort of low barrier to entry and promised results quickly, and it left me empty and desolate. So 3 years in, after 3 years of trying to quit pornography, I've now become a pastor. Okay, I'm starting to look to get into a serious relationship so I can get married, and I am still struggling with porn multiple times a month, and then every once in a while having major binges where I'm watching tons of pornography within 24 to 72 hour window. In this season, I had two prayers. Okay, number one is I prayed, God, whoever my future wife is, keep her from me until I get this sorted. As much as I want to get into a relationship and get married, I don't want to bring this in. And my second prayer was, if you can help me figure this out, I will dedicate my life to helping other guys figure it out too. Okay, those are my two prayers, just my quiet prayers. I wasn't telling anybody about them, but I'm praying them, especially on the days after I've slipped or the days where I'm really tempted. So around this time, I end up joining a program. Okay, now this program has mentorship. This program has teachings. This program offers community. And what the core concept of this program was is that any behavioral issue you have is anchored in the heart. Okay, the way I say it is heart first, behavior second. And a lot of people, when they deal with behavioral issues, especially in the church, we try to slap on behavioral solutions. But if we're willing to dig a little bit deeper and get to the heart of the matter and really tackle the issues at a root level, then the behavior will start to take care of itself. That's the whole premise. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to get right back to the show. But really quick, I want to make sure that you guys know I am on Instagram. I'm very active over there. And a lot of you tell me that Instagram is triggering. It's a distraction. It's a waste of time. So I always recommend that you find accounts that are actually going to move you towards your goals and help you in your future success. My account does that. We have that kind of content every single day. The handle is Sathiya Me Sam, and my DMs are always open. I respond to every single message that comes through. I'd love to speak with you over there. Link is in the show notes if you can't spell my name. Joining this program is where my life began to change. And the next 18 months is where I radically accelerated in my recovery journey. Now, it didn't happen overnight. 18 months is actually a pretty long time. But the difference is I knew that the things I was focusing on were going to lead to the outcome I wanted. And in my most hopeless days of my pornography addiction, it was because I was putting effort into something that I wasn't sure was actually going to work. As soon as I knew that this was going to actually help me, I had no problem committing to the process, trusting it, and sticking it out long enough. And in February 2016, which is 8.5 years ago at the time of this video, I had my last relapse. And since then, I haven't looked back. And I'll talk a little bit more about how these prayers of mine actually got answered. But let me tell you what this actual system looks like to get clean. Now, this is what I call my deep clean system. This is a consolidation from my own journey, plus my work as a university researcher and the years that I spent pastoring people through these kinds of issues as well. The deep clean system is predicated on 3 core pillars, okay? The first pillar is building self-awareness. So for me, I was so unaware of my inner life that I had no chance of actually quitting pornography long term. See, if you don't know the feelings and the belief patterns and the thinking systems that are governing your behavior, if you don't know what's going on at a deeper level and you're ignoring them and you're numbing them and suppressing them like I was, you are going to stay stuck. You might have bursts of freedom. You might be even able to go a couple months. Eventually, you will fall back into this. This is the most important part to get started because we have to know what we're up against. What are we actually dealing with? Now, the quickest way to build self-awareness is number one, if you're a verbal processor, find somebody you trust and talk to them for 15 minutes every single week. Or if you want to do this solo to start out, which I totally get, that's how I started as well, journal. Okay, and just ask yourself 2 questions. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Literally doing that every day, 5 minutes, that will massively accelerate your self-awareness. And that'll allow you to move on to the next pillar, which is transformation of the heart. Okay, this is where you start to address traumas. I had some traumas in my life. I was kind of ignoring them because I had a good childhood. You know, that was the story I told myself. And honestly, when I look back, I did have a good childhood. But I also had traumas. I had unmet needs. I had damaging experiences. I had some weird conversations around sex and some conversations that didn't happen around sex that probably should have happened that set me up for my addiction. So I had to work through these traumas. I had to heal from them. I had to reach a place of forgiveness, like actual forgiveness, where I'm not just saying I forgive you and I'm dusting my hands off, but actually forgiving from my heart and reaching that place of healing. Actually, I mean, this is where my life really turned around. In fact, I still remember the one session I had finished in this program. I had finished a session with a specialist who was helping me work through my relationship with my mom. And in that session, they walked me through this process of forgiveness. And again, not just like saying the words, but really forgiving from the heart. And I walked out of that place a different man. I mean, just the air felt different. I felt different. And the next time I was tempted, there wasn't this huge urge within me. It was like this little knock. You know, it was so easy to ignore. It was so easy to resist. I mean, this process, this specific pillar is where my life really began to change. Now, in our coaching program, when we're walking clients through this, we actually focus on inner child work. That's kind of the modality that's the most effective. But there's lots of different forms that you can use to work through your trauma and heal your heart. Now, the last pillar is shifting your identity. And this is where we step into your identity in Christ. This is where you really begin to understand who you are and start to make decisions that reflect your value. I've studied a lot of other recovery programs out there. I've met a lot of people that have recovered either through my own program or people that have recovered through other programs. And the more I learn the stories, all of them have these 3 pillars in common. They built self-awareness. They went through a transformation of the heart experience or process as well. And they shifted their identity from who they used to be with the addiction to a new person, a new man who is completely separate from that addiction history. This is the deep clean system. And this is what has allowed me to experience 8.5 years of freedom, over 1,500 other people we've walked through personally in this system, and another 10,000 people have gone through it through my book and other material that we offer. Now, these 3 pillars comprise the deep clean system. This is what has allowed me to experience 8.5 years of freedom. And as I mentioned, I had 2 prayers. Okay, at my lowest moment, I had 2 prayers that God would keep my future wife from me until I was ready, and that if He helped me experience freedom, I would help others experience freedom as well. So, February 2016, I had my last relapse. In November 2016, just 9 months later, I met my wife. We dated for 1.5 years. We were engaged for 1.5 years, and we've been married for 5 years, and we have a son together, and we're planning to have some more kids as well in the future. That has been the best part of this recovery journey for me personally. And the second part, in 2018 is when I launched Deep Clean. And since then, we have helped thousands of guys experience freedom. I've helped over 1,500 guys walk through this system. I've coached them through it. Another 10,000 people have just gone through the system on their own. And my message and my story has been broadcast to some of the world's biggest platforms, podcasts, national television, and international forums as well. And I say all of that so that you know, if you're watching this and you're struggling, it doesn't have to stop here. I was hopelessly addicted. I wondered if I could ever break free. I watched stories like this and told myself, their story's different than mine. It's not going to work. I talked myself out of it. But I'm telling you that if you apply this system that I just explained, you can have similar results. And God can do incredible things in your life. And here's the best part. It took me 5 years to figure out this system, to figure out what actually works, to separate the wheat from the chaff. But truthfully, if you apply this system, you can experience results much more quickly. For most of our clients, it takes anywhere from 2 to 4 months before their lives start to dramatically turn around. And the longer they stay in this system and stay in our community, the better their results are. And the same can be true for you. If you can find somebody to guide you through this system, find a community that you can plug into that's going to support you and help you along the way, you can have a very different life not too far from now. And it's not just because the system is so amazing, it's also because God wants you to walk in freedom. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe. And if you're struggling with pornography and you want some more help, subscribe to my newsletter. I send out weekly content about recovery, about masculinity, and about growing in your relationship with God. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.